God bless. Oh my gosh, that was a wave. Unexpected, and that's how God moves. We just let him have. We can do the most beautiful sets and have everything prepared, but when he wants to move and when he has something to say, we have to give him the floor. So can we just bless God one more time for everything that he is doing, all the testimonies, everything. I don't even know how to start now, Pastor. Welcome to Candid Conversations. Let's say that first. This is our second time doing it and our first time doing it at Spirit and Truth Southside. Yay! And this time we have our friends with us in-house. The last time we recorded it, so we are live, y'all. We are live. Studio audience. Let everybody hear you. Can you hear?
All the way live.
So whatever happens, happens, okay? All right. So we are here with friends. We're here with our pastor, Pastor Fred Wilkins. Give it up for him. Our co-moderator. And our friends. We have, listen, I knew about one of the friends that was going to be here. But when I found about the other two, I was like, God, you up to something. You and Pastor Fred are up to something. It's going to be amazing. So we have right here, we have Erica. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Raise your hand, Erica. Raise your hand so the people can see you.
Beautiful Erica. We have beautiful Jasmine. And we have the Mr. Handsome, Jay Brian.
Jay.
Minister Jay Brian.
Well, thank y'all. So we have been in this series, and this has been, reflective. It has been something that it's not just a preaching series where you just listen to it and hear a good word. This series was designed to make you think, and we're gonna kind of have a dialogue and kind of talk through a lot of this, and we probably will have some time to take some questions from the audience. All right, so y'all may have some questions that we may be able to answer. The first thing I guess I want to ask our panel guests is we're going through this series, and I want people just to know where you're from and what you do. Where you're from and what you do. And I guess we'll start here and move down this way. Go ahead, Jay.
That was going to be my question, too. We were on it, Pastor. Listen, boom, blow it up.
So, as some may know, some may not know, I'm Jay Brian Grice. I am originally from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Yes, ma'am. So I currently serve as one of the campus pastors for the Charleston Wesley Foundation. I'm over our leadership and discipleship in our international missions. So it's pretty fun.
Yes, sir. All right.
Jasmine.
Hello, everyone. I am from Moncks Corner, South Carolina. I tell a lot of people that I grew up down south with a northern swag because my family is from New York.
All right.
And I am currently an elementary school counselor.
Okay.
My name is Erica, and I am from New York. I just moved here about 8 years ago, and I'm a licensed professional counselor.
All right.
Amen. So when I was saying that, I understood what God was doing when he chose these people. There is purpose in every one of your occupations. I mean, bless him, baby. Give him the glory. There is so much purpose in each one of your occupations. Yeah. And going into that, I think that you guys were like one of the best options that we can have to talk about purpose. So we appreciate you being here. Amen. So, Pastor, you want to start?
In this series, we've had, like I said, we had the course of 7 different messages that we have covered. I'm thinking about them right now, and let me just go back to some of those.
We got to dig through some notes because it was so good. Everybody, have you been enjoying the Purpose, Why Are We Here, Why Am I Here series? Yes. Has it been blessing everyone? Amen.
So the first message in the series was he's got a plan, so I have a purpose. He's got a plan, so I've got a purpose. The second one in this series was I've got questions, the questions that lead us into purpose. Then we talked about I'm plugged in. You got to be plugged into your purpose. The fourth lesson in there was I'm in my element. I'm in my element. Then we went to W5. Somebody say W5.
W5.
The who, the what, the when, the where, and the why. Then the Lord told us in message number 6, there is more in me. And finally, on last week, we talked about I'm good on purpose. I wanted to hear from our panel guests today. Out of this particular series, what's one revelation or one thought or one message that just stuck with you? Because whenever you're listening to the Word of God and you hear preaching, there's some moments that just literally just stick with you, that just change your mindset. It becomes like a paradigm shift. It becomes like a light bulb that goes off. What's one thing from each of you that you took from this series that just like I will keep that forever?
I guess I'll start. Something that I've actually been using it lately because your series correlated with what we were talking about at the campus ministry. And one of the things that stuck out to me the most is when you told us to function where we fit and to fit where we function. That really resonated with me because on this discovery to finding my purpose, I was trying to fit into places with cliques and different things and people that God never called me to.
Wow.
So it really it hit me because I remember when I was at that place trying to just find my place.
Yeah.
In life, in God, in the kingdom. So that's what stuck with me the most.
Man. And that's so good, Jay Breon. You said that you were trying to fit in with people and with cliques that really weren't not in line with your purpose. Wow. And when we did that, when that message that we did, we had the illustration. God gave me the illustration at that time to show two things that we're able to cut, right? And so we had a knife and we had some scissors. And we tried to cut something out of paper with a knife, and it was ridiculous how it came out. Jagged. And it was jagged how it came out. Then we tried to cut an apple with scissors. And it's like if you're not functioning where you fit, everything in your life just becomes more difficult. It becomes more of a struggle, right? And even when, like you said, when you're trying to fit in with people that God has not really assigned to your purpose, because we want to be liked, we want to be accepted, but at the same time, you have to do so much to make it work.
So much. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's really scratchy. That's uncomfortable. Like yeah.
So when you heard that, my question is, what adjustments did you immediately make or decide that you had to make?
I would say when I heard that, it really was a reminder for me because I honestly just recently got to a place where I'm comfortable with being unapologetically me.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when I heard it, it was just a reminder to basically just keep on doing and pursuing the things of God and being who He has called you to be and not what anyone else wants you to be.
Wow.
So it was a reminder for me. And it let me know that I'm right where God wants me to be and that I'm on the right track.
I love it. I love it. Anybody else?
You can clap if you want.
Come on. That's good.
For me, it was there is more in you.
Yeah.
And so in that message, you were speaking about being boxed in. And you asked how many grew up in a family church.
Yeah.
And so my grandfather was a pastor, and growing up in the church, being in church all the time, and I grew up playing the drums in church, I was put on a pedestal. And so therefore, you were not supposed to do any wrong. I had to dress a certain way. I dare not come to church in pants.
Wow.
Couldn't wear makeup.
Okay.
Couldn't wear jewelry.
No
I
makeup?
actually didn't get my
My.
ears pierced till I was 22 when I was in college.
Wow.
And so therefore, if you did make a mistake, it was like deemed upon as if you did so wrong, as if you couldn't be
Right.
human. And so I grew up with so much pressure on my shoulders.
Come on.
So when I actually went to
Wow.
college, of course, you want to wild out, do what you want to do.
Right?
Wait a minute. When you got out there on your own, you were like,
Jasmine?
freedom.
Yes.
Freedom.
Yes. And my mother was like, "Did you go to church today?" Church in my bed. So,
Bedside Baptist.
yes. And so along the way, I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
Some people could say L's and correlate that with losses, but I took it as lessons learned.
Woo, wait a minute. Say that again. Say that again.
Rewind that.
I took it as lessons learned. So I had to make those turns to get to where I am today, to make me who I am now. And so when you were speaking about there's more in you, that really resonated with me because I felt so for a long time like, oh, people are going to judge me, you know, because of what I used to do. But I actually believe it's helping me to be more of a speaker, more of an encourager, more
That's
of a
right.
motivator, and especially being over the women's ministry,
Come
it's
on.
helped me to, you know, empower other women because of the
Yes.
experiences that I've went through.
Woo, y'all make some noise for that. Wow. So when I think about the message, there's more in me, right? When I was studying, because you know, as preachers, like the Lord has to give it to us first. And the Lord was just showing me. He was like, son, I called 12 ordinary dudes. Like they were ordinary people. Like Peter, James, and John were just out there running their fishing business. And they were, you know, they were doing their thing, making a living for their family, doing what they were doing. But he said, I had to come on the scene and reveal to them that there was more in them. They never could see themselves as being the foundation and the leaders of a movement called Christianity.
Right.
Matthew was a tax collector. Paul was a tent maker. Come on. Luke was a physician.
That's right.
But God took these ordinary people, and when they got around the extraordinary one, he revealed to them stuff that was down in them that they didn't even know they had in them. Has anybody, you know, just by show of hands in the room, has God ever showed you that there's more in you and it like blew your mind that you got put into a situation and you didn't have no choice but to be innovative? You didn't have any choice but to survive. You didn't have any choice, hallelujah, but to be creative. And when you used to think that you had to depend on people and then God showed you that you could do it all by yourself. Come on, somebody. Somebody say, there is more in me.
There's more in me.
That's what I love about it. And when there's more in you, only God can unlock that, you know? Cece, what do you think about that?
Ditto. Listen, my discovery, I mean, is about the same as well, too. Like, I know that there's still a lot that's locked up in me as well.
Yeah.
But it's really the fight of trying to navigate and find that path. You're born with a purpose, and you mentioned that, too. Like, God does not create anything without a purpose.
Yes.
And he's just not going to reveal it. He's not going to say, okay, I put you here. This is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes he does, but you still have to kind of navigate that thing and make sure you're on the right course and in his will.
Absolutely.
So I'm still trying to pull out all my stuff as well. and I feel like I'm on the right track, and that's why I appreciate this sermon and I appreciate the series, because I would say a lot of your series has touched me and has really, really ingrained some things in me, but the purpose one really, really sticks with me because we're born for a purpose and not just to be here.
God almighty.
So there's something for us to do. There's something for each and every one of you to do. You just have to lock in with the Holy Spirit and go for it. And then even with that, you may be scared. That's the other part.
Yes.
Purpose is scary.
Come on, say that.
Purpose is scary. It is traumatic sometimes, but it's necessary. And once you get there, you'll know. You'll know when you've hit your purpose. So that's my take.
Wow. You know, and Jasmine, a little known fact about Jasmine is like she mentioned it that she plays the drums.
Listen, I didn't even know that.
Give it up for a girl drummer, y'all. She plays the drums. Like I could throw her on them drums right now and she can.
Listen.
We ain't gonna put her on the spot though, but
we got our own
but she can get on the drums. But imagine, because Jasmine is a school guidance counselor. But imagine if she just locked herself in that box like I'm just a church drummer. What would the world be missing if you locked yourself into one element of yourself?
Because we're multifaceted.
We're multifaceted, right? Don't box me into just the one thing that you think that I can do.
Don't box me in.
Don't box me into just the one gift that you know that I have. There is more in me. Come on. I love it. I love it. Erica. What stuck out to you in this series?
It's really hard to pinpoint one thing that stuck out, but it was when you started giving this series, it was at a very pivotal moment for me where I just graduated with my master's degree back in May and just got licensed in August, and so
Wow.
So it was a lot of new things, a lot of transitions, all at the same time.
Yeah.
And before I started actually getting into my career now, I was doing 5 or 6 different things. I was leading worship. I was singing in a band. I was teaching. I was translating. I was doing so many different things. And when you started giving this message was right around when the Lord started speaking to me. I want you to have a singular focus right now.
Ooh,
and it was so
good.
me. So it was me getting into this career, and that's not to say that I'll never lead worship again or I'll never do this or that. I'm a teacher. That's just who I am. It's part of who I am. But he just kept saying, I want you to have a singular focus right now. So I had to drop 4 or 5 different things in a very short span of time and get focused into this career. And it was so uncomfortable.
Oh my God!
And that's a big thing about purpose is that, when you're in it, right?
Yeah.
But it's not easy all the time.
Right.
It can be very uncomfortable. I had a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety. Am I going to do this well? Is this what you've actually called me to? I didn't like how I handled this. Maybe there's something wrong with me.
Yes.
Oh my God!
A
Wow.
million things, right?
Yeah.
And I bet many people in here could level with me on that. But now, I'm only 2 months into it, but it's I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be, that I'm where God called me to be. And when I'm sitting there with clients and talking to people, I'm just so grateful. I'm I get to do this for a living. This is what you've called me to. And but even with that, this is long-winded, but
no, you're fine.
Even with that, I know still that God has more for me to do. I'm going to get settled in this, and then he's going to say, okay, now I want you to speak.
Right.
Now I want you to start writing some songs. Now I want now I want you to do this or that, So even, doesn't matter how old you are. I don't care how old you are, young,
That's
older,
right.
whatever. God has more for you. There's always going to be more. There's always going to be more.
Wow. That's good. You wanted to say something about that?
I think we basically piggybacked on each other, and you're okay, sometimes purpose can be difficult and it's scary, but when you're in it, you know that, you do have to get to the point to where you're I am actually capable with God. I am capable of doing this. I can't do this on my own. I didn't even know this was necessarily in me. But when you get to the point of saying, okay, all right, God, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. Go ahead.
And that brings up a really important point is that pursuing the Lord every day at all times is going to be critical. Because you could be in what you're called to, and he's calling you to something else or to tweak something or do something different, and you have no idea because you're not spending that time with him. You're not sitting with him and listening, right? And so we need to be constantly, daily, just getting into his presence and hearing from him, hearing what he has to say. Sometimes it's just stay put, rest, just do what you're doing,
That's
right?
right.
But sometimes there's going to be new things that he's saying for you to do. I opened my own LLC when I started this counseling thing, and I was working part-time somewhere else, and he was no, I want you full-time at this place.
Wow.
And it just felt like I was forcing it, like, for weeks. And then because of that time that I spent with him, I was like, okay, now I know specific direction.
Yeah.
You know? And that's just going to be so important with purpose, is consistently spending time in his presence where you can hear those little steps, those little...
Yeah. Because you know, I'll give an example. I remember, you know, because I think about purpose, I think about navigating the future, right? I remember going somewhere, riding with my wife, and I had my GPS settings on silent. So the GPS was trying to navigate me, but because I had it on silent, we went right past the exit, right past the turn, because I couldn't hear the next instruction. And so if you're going to walk in purpose, it cannot be accomplished outside of a real relationship with God. Come on, anybody got a real relationship with God where it's not just a Sunday thing? It's not just, I don't just talk to him, you know, only when I come in church. I got a real relationship with God. And in order for you to navigate purpose, you have to have a real relationship. All right, let me, y'all remember this because this was in my notes. This was in my notes just as a refresher. Signs that you are not in your purpose.
Talk about it.
The signs that you are not in your purpose. Number one, we said you dread where you're at and what you do every day. Your life feels meaningless. Because there's a certain joy and fulfillment that comes with being in your purpose. So one of the signs that you're not in your purpose could be that you just dread where you're at every day. Like Lord, this is not it. This is not, I'm just not fulfilled here. I'm just not fulfilled in what I'm doing. Number two, this one is big. You are comfortable in your sin and you depend on things that give you temporary pleasure. People who are not in purpose always run to temporary pleasures.
Wow.
Because we all long for that sense of fulfillment. But when you're in your purpose, there's some things that you don't even have time to entertain. All right? The next one, the third one, you don't have a general sense of hope for the future. And the last one, you feel aimless, void of direction and void of drive. Right? That's good.
So my friend, and I meant to ask him how that statement goes. But he was saying that my worst day where I am is the best day for me. And it's what his occupation is, and he is really walking in his purpose. It's really an amazing thing to see.
Wow.
But his worst day on this profession is one of his best days.
Wow.
And if you feel that way about where you are, that's telling you that you're going in the right direction. Because it could be bad. It could look bad.
Yeah.
But it's still good for me because this is where my purpose is. I'm still working through this. So.
Awesome. All right. Got another question. What, for you all, what helped you begin to find your purpose? Because a lot of times it's not always very clear at first, and there's a journey to it. There is steps. And what I found is that God will leave breadcrumbs along the way to keep you in line and in sync with the path that he has for you, right? So I just want to hear from you all personally, like in your journey, what helped you discover, you know, some of the purpose? I know we may not be in the fullness of our purpose, but what helps you discover purpose up to this point?
So before I answer that, something kind of different about my journey was I knew who God called me to be, and I knew my purpose, and there was just different giftings and callings that God has given me. But my issue was, when do I do this? So and it goes along with what you were saying.
So how though? Because somebody may be questioning, like you said, I knew without a shadow of a doubt. How did God do that for you? So what did he do in your life that you knew how?
It goes back to what Miss Erica was saying.
Yeah.
I always developed a relationship with God.
Right.
Where I walked closely with him. So my thing was, he's like, this is what you're going to do. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do it all at once.
Right.
And that could almost drive you crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
So for me, I had to get to a place in prayer and in my relationship with God as far as, okay, I know what you called me to do, but when do you want me to do it?
Okay.
And I had to sit and I had to listen to what he had to say, which goes back to the previous question before. I was trying to go everywhere else. And some of what he's called me to do, I didn't want to do it.
Oh, wow.
Because it was uncomfortable for me.
Wow.
And part of some of the things that God has called me to makes others feel uncomfortable. And whenever you are, all of us at some point have been at an insecure place in our life.
Yeah.
So whenever you operate out of a place of insecurity, you want to please everybody. So I had to posture myself to hear God's voice, and that came through daily relationship.
Wow.
And one thing I want to say is this: for those of you, when we talk about prayer, because I feel the need to say this.
Come on.
It does not always consist of you saying something. Sometimes you just have to sit.
Yeah.
And wait for him to listen. Because I told the college students this past Monday, I said, some of y'all need to shut up because you do too much talking.
Oh, my.
And you don't give him time to speak. Because sometimes we can overtalk God.
Right.
So I had to learn. I have a friend in here. I'm not going to say her name because she doesn't like when I say her name. But I have a friend in here. And I have a few others who know I don't talk as much as I used to, but I used to have a problem with my mouth.
Okay.
And I was the same way in prayer with God. I was always doing the talking.
Yeah.
But I never postured myself to hear from him.
Wow. That's good. That's good. Ladies?
I mean, I can't help but just reiterate that relationship with the Lord is so critical, because when I think back of different pivotal moments that I've had in purpose and career and calling and ministry and all of that, it's been something that I hear him saying to me in my quiet time with him. Like, you know, what school I went to when I got my master's degree just now came when I used to call them my worship bike rides, and I would go ride my bike and just blare my worship music and just be like singing at the top of my lungs, like didn't care who was around me and everything. I was just like blessing them, just riding by.
Just riding your bike. It's your breath in my lungs, so I pour out my praise. Pour out my praise. I can just see that.
That was like literally what I was doing all the time, and he just dropped in my spirit like the specific school he wanted me to go to. And I was like, okay, God, I'll look that up when I get home, you know. But, you know, and also I used to be a public school teacher for like 9 years. And so I did that for like 9 years. It was like the last half of my last year where just the grace lifted. I was uncomfortable. I didn't like going to work anymore. I was like, what am I doing here?
Wow.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and
What am
it's
I
just,
doing here?
it's,
Yeah.
and a lot of you could probably level with me on that too, where like you knew you were called to something, and then months or years later, you're like, what am I doing here? Right?
Jesus.
And that was what happened with teaching, and it was a lot of just like sitting with him and just being like, why am I so uncomfortable? Like, why does this feel uneasy? You know,
The signs that you're not in purpose, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, so it was a lot. A lot of it was just overflow of my time with him. Was just hearing from him, paying attention to dreams, sitting and listening. That was like so incredibly important. And just worshiping, and also being around like good counsel, like godly counsel, where people can like speak into your life and be like, this is what I'm seeing in you, or, you know, you can get a word from somebody or something like that.
Yeah.
But it all came out of that intimacy with the Lord.
Absolutely.
Now, you said something, and I want Jasmine to touch on this. How do you get the courage to leave the familiar? How do you get the courage to be like, when you realize that this is not where I'm supposed to be? Because I know this is for somebody in here.
I was getting ready to say that.
How do
I know
you
this
get
for
the
a lot of
courage to
people.
be like, I got to pivot. If I stay here, I'm going to die. If I stay here, not literally, but something on the inside is going to die. It's going to waste away. If I stay, how do you get that courage to make a pivot, whether it be in your career, whether it be in what you're doing for God, whether it be, you know, anything, Jasmine? For you, what was that like?
to share some of my story, I went to undergrad to become a teacher. It was my last semester in undergrad when I decided that I wanted to be a counselor.
Wow.
And so I got accepted into grad school, and the same day I got accepted, I found out I was pregnant. So I still went to grad school, and of course, when you have a child, that's money.
Yeah.
So I fell back on my teaching degree, and I still went to grad school. So the principal knew I wanted to become a counselor, but she denied me. She didn't release me. I went on job interviews after job interviews. I was teaching longer than I wanted to teach.
Remember that.
Yes. And so I had anxiety going to work. I was depressed. I used to cry. I didn't want to be a teacher anymore. And so it was at the end of the school year. I remember it was over the summer. I was working a summer job, and I was looking up counseling jobs in Rock Hill, South Carolina, because I was getting ready to move because I felt like I couldn't get a counseling job here because she was stopping me. That same day, it was God who had the district office call me to tell me that I'm being offered a job as a counselor. So, y'all, I'm at my job.
Come on.
I immediately fell to my knees crying and had my friend videotape me thanking God because it was only God, because I felt like my only escape was to move away, but it wasn't so. And so therefore, I go along with both of them. It takes you being in worship and prayer in those still moments, allowing God to move, because a lot of times we do things out of our will and not according to his time, so everything aligns with him. Also, I want to say there's times where I felt defeated. A lot of you know I went through a divorce, and so raising two boys on my own, I wanted to give up.
Come on.
And it was God speaking to me. He said, Jasmine, this is not just for you, but it's to help other people as well. Absolutely. So it was God speaking to me that helped me to find and navigate in my purpose. I feel like there still is more in me, even stepping out of my comfort zone and being over the women's ministry. I feel like this is helping me a whole lot as well, because
you're doing an awesome job
purpose.
with that too.
Come on.
Yes, you're doing a great job with that.
Come on. Sometimes you got to get the courage just to break out. You got to get the courage to want more. Come on. It takes courage to want more for yourself. Anybody here by show of hands? I keep on saying show of hands. But anybody just want more than where you're at right now? Look at the hands in the room. Look at the hands in the room. Like, I want more than where I'm at right now. And the trick of the enemy is to settle. To settle for where you're at. Like, there is no more for me. This is as high as I will go. This is as far as I will go. But until you reach that place where you're really plugged into your purpose, right? I just want to encourage everybody, do not settle for what's beneath what God said for your life. Come on, I got a hand clap in it. Don't settle for what is beneath the place that God has for your life. And I realize that there's some things in my purpose, CC, you know what I'm saying? I'm walking in some of it, but there is still more that I see.
Absolutely.
And you have to see, you got to see where you want to be, and you got to see your future before you get there.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because if you can't see it for yourself, how can anyone else? No one else is going to see it for you. You got to see it for yourself.
And even if someone does see it for you,
okay,
you have to believe it for yourself as well.
Say that.
You have to believe it. And going back to what you were saying, Jasmine, when you were just that desperate, you were getting ready to move to Rock Hill. Had you not listened to God, and when he made that phone call, that could have been one of the most biggest mistakes of your life. So I'm thankful that he was like, okay, I have a ram in the bush for you here. I want to see how desperate you are to listen to see where am I taking you. And the ram came just right in time. So that's awesome.
Wow. All right.
This is good. Is this blessing anybody? Are y'all
It's
getting
helping.
anything
It's
from
helping.
this?
You know, another thing that I think about is, we've talked about this, y'all, that your passion or your burden a lot of times is an indication of what you're called to. All right? And so God will give you a passion and a burden, and that's one thing. And then another thing is the natural giftings that he places on the inside of you.
Yes.
Two ways, those are two strong indicators, because if you have a passion for something and a burden for something that just moves you. You just gravitate to it. It's like your heart is just pulled to that area. That is an indicator, and the gifting. If you all can talk about real quick, what is something that God placed in you or revealed to you that was in you, whether it be a gift, something that you do very, very well, or a passion, something that your heart really gravitates to, that you now understand better now that you're in purpose. Like, I didn't understand why he gave me this or why he put this in me, but this is how it fits now. Can y'all point to something like that?
I would say that I'll put it this way. I love to see people operate and be exactly who God has called them to be.
That's good. That's your passion then.
Something that he's given me is the eyes to identify what's on the inside of them. So I like to tell people, I believe God ultimately has called me. It's interesting because I'm a male, but he's called me to be a midwife, to help me identify what's on the inside of others and help me birth it out of them.
Right.
And I've been seeing it a lot, and it correlates with everything I do with the campus ministry. And it's been blowing my mind.
Yeah.
Because they've been walking into their God-given identity, and they're just being who he's called them to be. And the crazy thing is they haven't seen the fullness of it, but they're just like right on the onset. So that's my burden, my passion, and my gifting.
I love that.
Too.
Awesome.
For me, I've always had a love for children. And so basically, like growing up in the church, life is thrown your way.
Yeah.
And so when you go through hurts, it's always give it to the Lord. You don't talk about it.
Wow.
And so therefore, I knew growing up and being a child who experienced divorce between my parents, we just didn't talk about it.
Wow.
And so you're hurting and you're not able to release that hurt. So I know I found my passion. Well, how can I be able to relate to kids more about this?
Yeah.
Because I didn't have anyone to speak to at the time. So therefore, that's why I led into becoming a counselor. Also at my school, I started a dance team before COVID hit.
Yeah.
I haven't started it yet again. But I have a passion for kids not being out in the streets, giving them something extra to do. So that's why I started a dance team at my school. But it's like I want to do more with that in the community.
Yeah.
Also, I can relate being a single mom. You may not have the funds to be able to put your kids in extracurricular activities.
Yep.
So it's like possibly even starting a center where they can send their kids to have things to do, start tutoring programs. So I know there's more in there. It's just being able to
center.
get the idea going and get it out.
I love that. I love that. So what I heard you just say is like there's pieces of your pain that became relevant to your purpose. Come on, I just want to share that with somebody in the room today, that there is pieces of your pain, pieces of your story, some of the things that you've been through that God is ultimately going to use as part of your purpose.
Yes.
Wow. Erica.
I think one of the biggest things about me that ever since I was real small is I've always been very sensitive, and I like to call it like I'm a feeler. So I can like walk into a room and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Something like that. Or I'll like ride by a house and I'll be like, something's not right in that house. Just I can just sense things like that. And so I kind of grew up with a lot of people around me saying, you're too sensitive and like, that kind of stuff, which, I think any gift that God gives you, you have to learn how to steward it well, right? It's a gift to you, but it can get out of control, right? And you kind of have to manage it. And so I've kind of had to learn that as I get older, and I'm sure there's still more for me to learn how to manage with it. But because as a worship leader and now also as a counselor, I can very specifically sense or feel what's going on in a room or with a specific person. And so that helps me to be able to sing prophetically when I'm leading worship, or when I'm with a client in counseling, I can, like, the Lord will show me very specifically, this is the direction we need to go in with this person, because this is what's going on with them, or this is, something that they're struggling with. And so it's kind of fed into these really important parts of my purpose, is this gifting of being able to really sense what's going on with somebody.
That's good.
But again, we need to learn how to manage it and steward it well. Just like money or anything else, we have to learn how to steward those things really well.
Let me ask you a question. Did people always come to you for advice before you got into the counseling profession? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I feel like that's like a very common thing to happen. And I don't know if it was so much advice, but that I felt like a lot of people would say, like, you're very easy to talk to. So it was more of that, because counseling isn't really advice.
Right.
There's a lot of technique and, like, science behind it too, but I definitely got a lot, like, you're very easy to talk to.
Right.
And a gift that I feel like God's still building in me is just wisdom, godly wisdom. And so I feel like those two things I would hear a lot before I even knew that I was called to this.
Wow. Okay. See, you got a question for them?
Do I have a question? Let's see.
It's so good. I'm starting to get lost in the conversation, because I'm like, what you saying? It was actually something I wanted to comment about when you were saying how sensitive you are. I don't want to say deal, but I have that particular sensory placement as well, I will say. And I usually speak of it as being very empathetic. Like, I feel things. Burdens for me, I guess that's what we're talking about with burdens.
Right.
Homeless people does something to me.
Yeah.
My first time going to Chicago, and their homeless rate is so out of control. I wasn't prepared for what I saw. And they're just out there, and it just welled me up so badly. So homeless people, elderly, things like that, it's such a burden. In being empathetic or being that sensitive, you do, like you said, you have to steward it so well, because you want to go out and save the world. But God has a way for you to actually use that burden for, what his purpose is supposed to be in that. So
wow.
I have that part of me, and then I have my creative side of me, to where everything flourishes, but you just don't necessarily know. Like you said, you have so many gifts at one time, and everything is popping off, and you're just like, okay, what am I supposed to do? Which one am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do all of them?
Yeah.
Or am I supposed to do one? Okay, if I drop this one because I may not want to do it, but then he's like, no, here you go again.
Yep.
And that happened, here with Pastor Lady K. I tried to drop one of my giftings, and
pick them back up.
When I got here, I was like, all right, yeah, I'm just going to help out and do that. I'm going to do that.
Jesus.
And it didn't work out that way. So he will always give it back to you what your purpose is and what you're supposed to be working in. So that's my spiel on that.
Wow, that's good. All right, I got one more question. Then we may take a question or two from the audience. One of the things that came out in this series is the easiest way to waste time is to make decisions outside of purpose. The easiest way to waste time in life is to make decisions outside of purpose. What can you share maybe that, because a lot of times, when things like this, we talk about the good and, God just spoke to me at 2 a.m. and let me know. And I knew ever since, but what can you speak to that might help somebody that you had to learn along the way about purpose that was surprising?
Pastor, you want to answer that? We haven't had any questions to you today.
Questions? Okay. I mean, I'll be the first to maybe tackle that. I think, what I found navigating through purpose is I had to learn the difference between when God wanted me to go after something versus waiting on him to do things. I think that was big for me, because there's some things that won't happen unless you go after it, Like, it's not just going to drop in your lap. It's not just going to come your way. It's not just going to just work itself out. And there's other times where I would say I had to learn to work with God because he would drop a hint or he would open up a door, and I had to learn to say, okay, God, you open that door, but it's still up to me to pursue and to go through it. It's still up to me to make some moves and to do what I need to do to see that thing come to pass. So I think in my journey, sometimes I was waiting on God, but God was really waiting on me.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you found that your journey has been a little difficult, or did he give you a clear enough path to where you feel like you were able to navigate it well?
When it comes for purpose for me, my spiritual purpose has always been easier than my vocational purpose. Right. You know, in work, because I didn't have the knowledge. I'll be honest. I made a lot of mistakes in my 20s. And I didn't have the knowledge. So you know what ended up happening to me? I ended up working jobs that I could find. I just worked jobs that I could find. I was like, highest bidder, well, how much can I make on this job? Oh, you paying that? Yeah, let me go ahead and apply here. And then I'd be there for a couple years. Oh, you paying that? Let me go ahead. And then, I found myself, a couple years in, and I'm like, none of these jobs is really, if I had done it over again, and I'm also divorced before I got married, crazy young, before I even knew who I was, before I even knew my purpose, and I knew who God called me to be. And, that marriage ended and everything. And I wasted time, I wasted years just wandering. And so for me, my spiritual purpose has been easier for me than my purpose, so, that God had for me vocationally or how he desired for me to make money. And I wish that, I had conversations like this so I didn't waste years in wandering.
Listen.
I'm telling you right now, if I could go back and do it again, I would have went and got that engineering degree that I wanted to get. Come on, somebody, because that's ultimately what I loved. And even though that may not have been where God ultimately had me forever, that's really what I wanted to do. That's what I felt drawn to. And, God may have navigated me a different way, but I wish I didn't waste so much time just wandering, and it caused me to just, like I said, just be in situations where, like, I was just making ends meet. And so for my spiritual purpose, though, God would always leave, like, these breadcrumbs on what he wanted me to do next. And I found that easier. I would receive prophetic words about who I was and where I was going. And I would see doors open. Doors would just open. And I was like, okay, God, I know that's you. And so spiritually, it's been easier for me to navigate, even to, like, I knew I was called to pastor even when I was, like, in my early 20s. Words came to me. The leadership that was over my life was steering me. They saw it in me before I saw it in myself. So I think on that regards, it was a little bit easier for me to navigate spiritually than it was vocationally. So, I think that if I could do that over, there's a whole lot I would do over.
I'm just going to say I feel like mine is opposite.
Really? Okay.
Vocationally, somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have an entrepreneurial spirit that's upon me.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to do.
Come on.
It's just a point of getting
it's
it.
Upon
it's
me.
upon me.
Ooh. Thank you, Lord.
It's upon
Jesus,
me and it's in me.
I felt that thing.
Y'all push me, don't push me. But I know it's there, and
yeah.
I have all these different things and different ideas, and I know it's coming. But spiritually is more of a fight for me.
Okay.
And I'm gonna leave that there.
She said she's gonna leave that there. Anybody else want to say anything on that? It was the greatest way to waste time is to make decisions outside of purpose. Who we date, what job we take. That part resonated in the room, right? Who we date, because I'm just gonna say this: if they don't even fit your purpose, yes, you already wasting time on date number one. I'm being real. On date number 1, you wasting time already. Because, God, you got sense enough to know this person don't even match up with my pedigree. This person ain't on the same wavelength with where my future is going. So on date number 1, you already wasting time. And date number 1 can turn into 5 years.
5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Why y'all yelling in the room?
5
This is a panel discussion.
years, okay?
This is a panel discussion. It can turn into 5 years. I'm telling you what I know. And so when you make those decisions and it's not in line with your purpose, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's why you got to know. It is so important. This discussion is so important to know what's in you and to have a sense what God is doing in your life or where he's taking you. Because if it doesn't line up with that, then I'm not going to waste my time trying to make it work, trying to fit, trying to do this or that. And if you don't know who you are, it causes you to wander.
And
you
settle.
wander, right? You just wander until you find out who you are and what God has put on the inside of you. So that was the question, like, what things did you have to learn maybe the hard way when it comes to purpose?
Say something real quick. My thing is, you can pray to God, like, God, should I do this?
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're waiting and waiting, but then we do it out of our own will instead of his will. So therefore, that leads to years being wasted.
Yes.
Oh,
He
my
said,
God.
Settling.
Instead
Instead of
Come on,
hearing
clap
from
for
God.
that.
Yes.
Keep going, keep going.
That's basically what I had to say. And well, for me also, it's pleasing people.
Oh,
Because
my God.
it was, of course, growing up, it's better to marry than to burn.
Yep.
And so that was taken all kind of out of context growing up. And so you're hearing that. So
I know y'all ain't burning. Sorry. That's for the marriage panel. That's for the
Kadarius.
marriage and single.
There's another one.
E hot in here, Pastor. E hot. E hot. Just got hot in the room. All right. All right. I see Monica fanning. Bless him, daughter.
Bless him, Monica. Give him the glory, daughter.
Bless
Give
him,
the glory.
daughter. Woo! All right. But you felt pressure, maybe?
Yes, it was pressure. Of course,
Yeah.
growing up in a church and having
Yeah.
a baby out of wedlock. So, of course, they thought the only way to do is to get married. But
Yeah.
that wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I was pleasing other people instead of hearing from God and doing what he has for me.
Jesus. Woo, that'll preach right
That
there.
is good. That is good. Oh, we might have some questions of the
Any,
audience
yeah,
with
we're about
that.
to wrap up. Any questions from anybody out
Or
there?
comments.
Questions or comments? We want to open it up, y'all.
Dude, we know there's questions and comments because y'all were just screaming a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir. All right, I'm gonna step down and catch this question or comment.
No, I agree with everything that y'all were just talking about. I know for me personally, I think identifying my purpose, I think I'm like pastor, like spiritually, that purpose is identified so much easier. Vocationally, it can be complicated. And kind of like managing what you already know, because we're spiritual beings habitating the flesh.
Right.
Because I know my spiritual purpose, that can sometimes frustrate my vocational identification in life, which will make me want to move from one thing to the other. Like Pastor said, it's like, all right, well, I'm kind of, and like right now I'm in that place. I told Nervous, I said, well, I'm going to quit my job on Monday until my next opportunity I'm believing God for call me. But, you know, that's a moving in wisdom. Like, well, all right, I don't have that call yet, so I'm going to stay. But even in that, it's a sense of preparation. And one thing I learned, I was talking with someone, and she was sharing with me that sometimes when we get anxious to get into our next arena of purpose, if we're not taking the time to hear God clearly and for his instruction, you end up outside of his will, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't end up there, but it's a longer route to get to purpose. So I think for me, that's where I've been, like, knowing what I know and just having to endure the journey of getting there. Because I found myself in that place a lot of times of moving fast. And although I may have arrived where I knew I wanted to be, the journey was so much more tedious than had I just waited on his yes or his go, his wait. Yeah.
So so are we now, as we mature, are we learning how to wait for him to navigate us through purpose? I think that's about the main issue is the wait. The wait is the problem.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult.
So how do we get to a point to where we say, okay, God, your timing, whatever it is that you want to do is your timing. I know we're going to get there. I'm getting older. Getting older. What you gonna do? So how do we navigate that? Have you guys had that issue? I mean, yes, you all had issues with timing. How do you manage the timing part now that you've been through a lot and you understand it better? How do you navigate the timing?
There's a word that keeps coming to me just as we're talking, and that's comparison. And so something I know I've had to work through, and I feel like it's just human nature, is the sin of comparison, right? And comparing yourself to other people is very dangerous. And so I could easily see, like, us sitting up here and talking about how we're on our purpose and we're doing what we've been called to do, and people hearing that and being like, man, well, I'm not doing that, and but first of all, there's a whole journey that, like, you're missing out on, first of all, and second of all, like, I'm 39 and I live with my friends. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like my whole life isn't figured out. I'm single. I don't have any kids. Like, you know what I mean? So, right. Single and childless, so, so sorry.
Listen.
That was out of the
I'm
overflow.
raise my hand.
Just coming out. I'm so sorry. But I say that to say that, like, it could be really easy to compare yourself to somebody who's doing something that you want to do, or that seems like they have one area of their life together. Like, I can easily say too that, like, I have never been so happy in a job in my entire life. I've never been so happy with my boss and just how I'm treated and what I'm doing and everything. I have never been so happy in what I've been called to do. But there's a lot of other areas in my life that are not in place, that I would really like to be completely changed and that I'm still waiting on. Right. And it just keeps coming back to intimacy with the Lord. Like, he has also taught me how to rest,
That's so important.
That's super hard when you want something done. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
my gosh.
When you want a different job and he's just like, just chill, and you're like, no. I need to do something, like, give me something to do. And so I feel like that's how I've been a lot of my life, is like, you give me a rule, I can follow it, God. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it, And I've had to learn that, like, very tedious season of, you need to just rest and wait on my word.
That's good. That's so good. Monica.
I'm sorry, I wanted to jump in on your question. I also think it's about the pacing in different avenues of your life, because in some avenues you have to wait and wait and wait, and then others it's like take off, and you're like, wait, God, wait. And now
you telling him to wait now, right?
Now you want him to wait. So I think it's a matter of understanding what parts you're waiting on and understanding what parts you're supposed to take off for. Because for instance, although my work life may be taken off, my spiritual life might be in a moment of wait and more waiting. And so I think sometimes, I think you guys mentioned it before, sometimes you get anxious in one area, but it's really for the other. Mm-hmm. So I think the pacing and the waiting and the time and the maturity is coming to understanding which part you're waiting on and which part you're taking off on.
That's good.
Go ahead, Jay Brown, while they have the question. Go ahead.
Okay, we got some.
I know we're trying to close up on the time, but I really feel this pressing on me to say. I want to challenge us all and I love what you said about comparison. Because not all the time will your purpose line up with your vocation.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Because what happens is, and I don't want us to, one thing God has been pressing on me to do is to help people understand who who he originally called you to be, which was spirit. And I don't want us to, because, with us really working, I'm very young, and I'm working in a position, in a job that, to be honest, to man's standpoint, I don't have the credentials for it.
Listen, that's
but
it.
God really has, it just blows my mind of what I'm bringing in, and I haven't even finished school yet. Yeah. So it's like, but I don't want you to get hooked up on the fact that they're working in these vocations, they're working in their purpose. And I love what you say too, like we do not have it all together, but we cannot get caught up on the influence of society. Yes. Because for some of you, I'm just gonna tell the brutal truth. Some of you, you may not ever own a business because that may not not be what he wants you to do.
Right.
Because you may be at a place in your life where you may not be able to handle that. But the thing is, we have to be okay with accepting the will of God for our lives. Because what happened, because with comparison, you feel like, well, I have to get where she is. I have to get where Pastor Fred is. And that's not where God wants you. Because it's just some people, I may never become a millionaire as much as I want to be. And as much ideas I have to that caliber, God may not ever take me to that place. Because Jabrion, you can't even manage some of the things in your life now. So, it all comes back around to having that intimacy and that time with God and knowing his will for your life.
That's right. And
you have to strip yourself of your human nature and of your human desire. Because, and I'm going to say this, and I apologize if but truth be told, when all of this is said and done, like, our houses, we can't take with us. Our cars, our money, our fortune, and our fame, we cannot take with us. Right. And when we get to that place, when we stand before God, I want to go before God empty. Because when I was working at Dunkin' Donuts, when I was working at the Fudgery, I prophesied from the cash register. I helped people identify who they were behind the counter. Before I even got to being a campus pastor, into where God is getting ready to take me next.
Right.
And we have to get to a place where we're with God enough to where even if I don't go where I desire to be, because I'm in your will, I'm content. Wow. And I'm happy. So we have to get to a place where we strip ourselves of our human nature and our human flesh, because entertainment, the media, and all these kind of things will make us think, I have to get here. And that may not be where he wants you. So I just want to put that out there too, because I really felt that in the room, and I want to burst that bubble. Because you have to accept that reality. Even if I don't get there, am I in the will of God for my life?
That's good.
We got another one here.
So one of the things that stuck out for me in this particular series was when Pastor had said, which he mentioned about being like comfortable in your sin and like relying on temporary things, or like the temporary goodness that it gives you to like kind of like, I guess, like keep you there or stuck in those things. So for me, I wanted to know, like when you're uncomfortable in those things, like how do you kind of navigate or like go about getting out of those things so you no longer continue in those things, if that makes sense?
So like a crutch that you're using.
So like, let's say
get by, or
like let's say you drink alcohol, like when you're sad or angry, like that's your go-to, the alcohol. But like when you drink it, bad things happen. So like you get to a point where you're uncomfortable in drinking the alcohol, but you don't know how to stop drinking the alcohol because it gives you that like almost, I guess, like release of good. Like I don't know how to really explain it.
I get what you're saying. Yes, I totally get it.
So how do you get to a place where like you can no longer, like alcohol is no longer like the way, or
like how that desire goes away.
Yeah,
correct.
And doesn't come back.
Right. So a lot of people don't know this about me either. When I say while down in college, I drunk every day, and because that was my to go, because I had hurts that I didn't deal with that needed to be released. So for me, I don't have the desire to be an alcoholic and drink like that. Therefore, it takes worship. I play worship music every morning, It takes being in a place of prayer. It's a work in progress, of course. It's going to come up. Those desires are going to come up. But you have to be strong enough in the Lord to say, no, that's not for me. That's not where I want to be. I don't want to be in a drunken place. I don't want to do things out of my character anymore. So, therefore, how can I get into that place with God? You know what I'm saying? Or just simply calling on the name of Jesus. There's times where you get frustrated and you want to curse and be out of character. And so instead of doing that, you have to tame that tongue and say, Jesus, help me. Or a lot of times for me, I start singing a song, a worship song or something like that. So it is hard. We all said we are a work in progress and we're human. And a lot of people don't understand that. We're human. And so these things are going to come our way. So it's just you making sure that you're spiritually there to fight those desires.
Wow.
I think it has a lot to do, too. I think it's like a twofold thing. It's absolutely what Jasmine just said. And it's also knowing, do I need outside help? Do I need either professional help? Do I need pastoral help? Do I need a friend that I trust that can keep me accountable? Because a lot of I've had plenty of things like that in my life, and so it takes that turning to the Lord 100%, and then also knowing this feels very out of my control, so I need to get somebody else to walk with me on this journey until I feel safe and comfortable of staying away from that stuff.
Who can help me feel accountable?
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely.
That's good.
Yeah. So I think it's like a twofold thing. You need to know yourself, and part of what Jasmine was saying too is I think really getting into the Word where it starts saturating you who God is and what Jesus did for you. The more and more you fall in love with Jesus, the more you're going to want to say no to all that other stuff.
Yes.
Because there are certain things that I struggled with for years and years and years and years and years. And now when, I can't say that those thoughts never come to my head, but when they do, I say, Jesus, I love you more.
Come on. Jesus, I love you more.
That's everything. Like when you ask the question, that's been something for me personally, like part of like my ministry and the way I view church. It's like we talk about who God is and his ability to deliver us from things, but we don't fully trust him with that thing. Why? Because like you said, they're our crutch. So when I'm lonely, I turn to this. Yeah. Whether I can't call out certain things in the room, but y'all know what your struggle is. I know what mine have been. And like Jasmine and Erica them have said, it came from me, first of all, accepting what that crutch was for me. And then identifying, like, when that high is gone, how do I feel afterwards? You have to love yourself beyond that moment, and then identifying who God is, the price that he paid. And like Erica said, in the natural, just knowing who to talk to. Yeah. And that comes with, I think that's a greater part of deliverance, is finding someone who can hold you accountable and not judge you. Because they can see you beyond where you are, and then when you get beyond that place, that's somebody you can go back to, because the thoughts will come, the craving will come, but you have to know how to counter that and tackle that. That was really good.
Yes, Lord. Wow, great question. All right, we got the final three, and then we're going to wrap up within the next 5 or 10 minutes, all right?
My question is, when you're operating in your purpose, because you know that's what you're supposed to do, that God have ordained you in your spirit to do, what do you do when you get frustrated doing your purpose because of the place where God placed you, the people that's in that circle doesn't respect your anointing?
Okay, can I just speak to that, because I 100% understand what you're saying.
Yikes.
So Philippians 2:3 says, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider your others better than yourself." Now, what the phrasing in my Bible says, humility of mind. And I really studied that phrase. And what the Lord was showing me through that phrase, humility of mind, is is knowing so well who you are and what your identity is that it doesn't matter what anybody says or does to you.
Wow.
Right? It's knowing, I know so well that this is my purpose, that this is what God called me to, that I am a child of God, that Jesus purchased my life, right? And that I have nothing to pay back. There's nothing I can give. I know my identity so well that when somebody talks bad about me, when somebody mistreats me, when somebody does X, Y, Z, it doesn't throw me off base because I knew who I am so well. And that's humility of mind. So when it says, Philippians 2:3 says to think of others as better than yourself, it's not to be insecure. It's not to be thinking bad things about yourself. It's to say, I know so well who I am that it doesn't really matter.
Wow.
Right?
Yes, Lord.
Let me just tell you one more thing, that I can say that with such seriousness and knowing, because I've had to go through that too, even recently, where God keeps bringing me back to that one verse over and over and over again. Like, you need to know yourself so well in me that it doesn't matter what happens around you. Your circumstances don't matter. But it takes work. It takes a lot of work. It's not easy. Mm-hmm. Right.
For a cigarette in his
Need to be on here. Yo, they spoke so powerfully today.
Yes, they did.
Y'all make some noise for my co-host with me on today, CCJ. She's just dope.
And give
All
it
right.
up for the best pastor on this side of heaven, Pastor Frederick Wilkins. I'm about to say